Hello and welcome to the PF Graphic Decal project. In this video you will see how I added a PF graphic decal to the guitar that I repainted. I did this design myself, and with a little bit of help of Google image search, I used Photoshop to do the design work. I went to a print shop because of the size of the printout required. They didn't seem to mind that I was printing the content that was possibly a copyright issue. I used a solvent-based paint that was Benetton brand. They advertised this product as a graffiti art product, but the side of the can states that it is not to be used for vandalism. The main reason I picked this paint was that it was not an enamel paint. I was trying to get away from using enamel paints as per the mistake I made on my first repaint project. I bought a couple of cans in one specific shade of red. When I had to buy more cans, I accidentally picked up a different shade of red and then stuck with that shade. It was such a slight difference that it really didn't matter in the end. So even though I matched to the colour in the design work, the shade that turned out on the body was not the same anyhow. I used a quite intelligent technique that would nail down the placement of the design print to the front of the guitar. I put nails in all of the screw holes on the front of the guitar. Even though each nail would be smaller than the hole that it would fit into and rattled around a little bit, by using so many anchor points, they averaged out, and once all the nails were through the paper, it was held tight in place. Once I found the exact location, I cut away the excess paper that wasn't going to be glued to the body. This was to see where the lower parts of the print were going to be glued to the body. The second print that I am laying down is for the pick guard. I don't know if anyone else has ever done this before, but the idea was to print out the same design twice and have the second print stuck to the inside of the clear pick guard, and this was to continue the design across the front of the body. If I used a normal type pick guard, the paper would have to be glued to the outside of the pick guard to be seen, and I think that would look a little bit tacky and would be easily damaged. So I came up with this instead of filling in all of the cavities, just to have a flat surface to support the image. I don't know how many points for originality I get on this one, but I don't think anyone else has done this with a clear perspex pick guard to put a picture in the underside of it. Feel free to steal this idea, but I don't know of any sources that have done this before me. If there are, I came up with this idea on my own, and I didn't see it done anywhere else to steal the idea from. I nailed down the pickguard version of the design into exactly the right spot and roughed out the outline of the pickguard with a pen. I then cut around the pen line, larger than what I would need in the end, just so I could see what I was working with. I also did this to ensure that the nail holes would line the print up perfectly once they were glued down to the body and pickguard respectively. At this point, the Perspex did not have screw holes drilled in it yet, so I drew a bloated outline around the pickguard shape, so I did not draw on any part of the graphic that would be visible after the final cut. So I did a cutaway in the shape of this bridge to address that possible issue. I didn't want the design paper to cover where the bridge is located. The paper was 200 GSM and the bridge would have been raised up slightly where the paper and clear coat would have been added. I put nails in all the available holes and pushed them through the paper so that I would be able to locate the holes after I glued the paper down to the body. I didn't want glue going on the front of the design at all, and have to wipe away the glue where the gap for the bridge was, so I put down some painter's tape exactly where the hole was located. That way I could easily tear it away after the fact and not risk wiping glue on the front of the design. The nails held the front half of the printout while I prepared the glue for the back half of the design on the body. I wanted just enough glue under the design to stick it to the body, so the least I could do was use a roller to roll the glue on as thin as I could across the body of the guitar. I was trying to be careful to avoid letting any air bubbles get under the design. In general, many guitar tone purists would not agree with adding a layer of paper to the front of a guitar body, so in the spirit of snowflake science, I tried to keep the glue as thin as possible. If I would glue another decal to another guitar body, I would use the exact same practice as this because it worked out quite well. During this process, I knew I only had one shot at getting it right the first time. Stress levels were high. I didn't do any trial practice runs, so it was hit or miss. Fortunately, when I was rolling this down, there were nails in the body, but the roller made of foam just collected them up as it rolled over. I think you can see there where the roller collected one of the nails, but I quickly replaced it in case there was movement in the paper. I thought that the more flappy bits that cover down where the pickguard goes would be more tricky, but due to the thickness of the paper, it kept its form and didn't twist or make the alignment go off. Before I got to this step, I didn't think too much about how I was going to hold it down while the glue set. But I had these guitar-shaped bits of ply from when I cut practice body shapes to practice my sunburst spraying on for my first guitar respray project. It was just dumb luck that they would suit this purpose so well. The next day, I was sure the glue was dry enough and I started trimming back the excess paper from the sides of the decal. This is where I realised how good the glue did its job, and there was no squeeze out because I laid it so thin. It held the paper down right up to the edge perfectly. There was a little bit of glue on the edge where the paper did not need to come down to the body, but it was not squeeze out. I used a bit of Scotch-Brite to scrape away the glue from the sides where the paper did not need to connect. I just had to rough it up a bit and peel the dried glue away without being too specific about it. During this process, it actually roughed up the edge of the paper a little bit, and that was the first phase in trying to get the paper to conform to the shape of the edge of the body. This is the taped off graphic. I did this because I knew the back needed another coat of paint, and I didn't like the amount of exposed white paper where the rough cut of the decal was. The main challenge of this project was not simply gluing the decal down and laying poly over the front of it. It was trying to hide the edge of this 200 GSM paper. Where I cut away the edge with my X-Acto knife on an angle, it left a lot of white paper exposed. So I used an airbrush to go over the edges that were exposed. The can respray helped, but it did not do the job completely, so I kept working my way back slowly with the airbrush. Cutting back the edges of the painter's tape with the X-Acto knife was a big mistake because it cut right through the tape and into the front of the edge of the decal, and that line was visible through the next few layers of paint. So the process of hiding the edges extended to trying to hide that extra line that I created with the knife. After the painter's tape came off is when I really noticed it. There were many phases of layering with the airbrush, using the airbrush again and again to fill in this line and to try and make it look more natural in the transition from the edge of the guitar onto the front of the decal. Before this project, I never airbrushed before. I bought an airbrush and compressor combo kit through eBay, and they were the cheapest airbrushes you could ever buy. Probably not the cheapest, but they were affordable and they did the job. I've never had lessons, but watched a few videos about how to use, maintain, and clean them so I could get this part of the project done. I'm not quite ready to lay down ghost flames just yet. The paint that I am adding to the edges is actually building up to meet the decal as I intended, and I do understand that the paint is not meant to be a filler, but it worked to achieve what I wanted it to. This is the end of part 1, and I will see you again in part 2.